he whispered to the chief's daughter. "Don't say a word, or we all die." The twin sons of Kestrel. 9 burned low in the sky, casting long shadows across the dusty settlement of Dustgate Outpost. Wooden stalls and metal shacks lined the uneven streets, and the air smelled of scorched oil, spice, and sweat. Merchants shouted in a dozen tongues, selling everything from synthetic grains to energy crystals. Traders waved glow sticks to attract attention, and children darted between legs, laughing and yelling. At the center of the town, the council hall stood on a raised platform of stone and steel, its tall spires glinting in the dying sunlight. Today, the hall was crowded. Humans and the native Red Mesa clans had gathered for a peace ceremony. Dust storms were common on Kestrel. 9, but today, even the wind seemed to hold its breath, as if the planet itself knew something was about to happen. In the midst of the crowd, a stranger rode a cyber-steel mount. Its metal legs hissed softly with each step, leaving small sparks on the ground. The stranger's duster was faded, almost gray under the twin suns, but streaked with streaks of burnt orange from the desert. A wide-brimmed hat shadowed his face, and only a pair of sharp eyes were visible beneath it. His boots clanked with the rhythm of his steed's mechanical joints, but he made no sound beyond that. No one knew his name. Few had seen him before. And most importantly, someone was following him. Far above, perched on the edge of a rock formation, a scout's sensors blinked in the fading light, but the stranger moved faster than the eye could follow. Inside the council hall, Chief Corlin adjusted the ceremonial staff in his hand, its tip carved from rare kestrelite stone. His daughter, Era, stood beside him. Era had always been different from the other Red Mesa children. She could sense danger before it came. Her brown eyes scanned the crowd with a predator's focus, catching movement, shadow, and sound. "Today we honor the treaty," Chief Corlin began, his deep voice echoing in the hall. "We honor the promise of peace between our people and the settlers of Dustgate. May our children inherit a world of safety and trust." The crowd clapped politely, though many faces were tense. Tensions had always been high between the settlers and the clans. Peace was fragile, and trust even more so. Ira's gaze shifted to the hall entrance. That's when she saw him, the stranger. His mount stepped over the threshold, quiet as a shadow. He carried no visible weapons, yet Era's instinct screamed that he was dangerous. Not dangerous to her, she realized quickly, but dangerous to everyone if ignored. The stranger moved toward the front, not stopping for the guards, who were too stunned to react. The crowd murmured, some whispering questions. "Who is he? Why is he here?" The stranger didn't answer. He walked with purpose, like he had only one destination in mind. Era felt a chill crawl up her spine. She knew, without understanding how, that he was not here to speak with the chief. He was here to warn them. The guards finally stepped forward, blocking the stranger's path. Their blasters hummed softly. "State your business," one of them demanded. The stranger's voice was calm, low, and urgent. "Don't speak. Not yet, or we all die." The words were barely a whisper, but they cut through the hall like a blade. Era felt them in her bones. She realized immediately this was no threat. This was a warning. The chief frowned. "Who are you?" "I am someone who has made a mistake," the stranger said, eyes flicking briefly to Era. "And it almost cost us everything." The guards exchanged confused glances. Era's heartbeat thumped in her ears. Something was happening beneath the ceremony, something nobody could see yet. The stranger was led forward cautiously, and he didn't resist. Instead, he subtly gestured to Era, tilting his head ever so slightly toward the ceiling. Era followed his eyes and saw a faint blinking light reflected in the glass panels above. It was tiny, almost impossible to notice, but she recognized it immediately. It was the symbol of the Orbital Strike Syndicate, a secret group of assassins who controlled satellite weapons capable of wiping out entire settlements. Era's stomach tightened. She had never seen one of these symbols in real life, but she had read about them in old clan scrolls and settlers' reports. If she misread it, people could die. If she reacted wrong, people could die. Her father continued speaking, unaware of the danger that hovered just above their heads. "We gather here in trust, in honor, and in hope." His voice faltered slightly as he glanced at the stranger, but he did not notice the silent panic in Ira's eyes. The stranger leaned closer to her. "Do not say a word," he whispered again. "Your voice could trigger it." Era swallowed hard. Her mind raced. "Trigger what?" she wanted to ask. But she remembered the stranger's words. Not a sound. Ira's pulse quickened. She could see the faint glow of wires beneath the ceremonial floor. Something was embedded there. Her instincts told her this was not decoration. This was a weapon linked to her father's staff. The stranger was taken to a side room, guarded heavily now. Even from there he kept watching her, silent, as if urging her to understand without words. Ira stayed calm in public, hiding the terror that surged inside her. She knew she could not panic. Not now. Not when seconds counted. She needed to figure out what he meant. She had to be clever. She had to be careful. Outside the hall, the twin suns dipped closer to the horizon. Shadows stretched long across the settlement. The festival noises had grown distant, as though the world itself were holding its breath. Ira walked slowly toward the side of the hall, pretending to adjust her robes. She studied the floor tiles, searching for unusual patterns. Her sharp eyes noticed something odd. One tile beneath the chief's staff had tiny metal ridges that shimmered under the light. The stranger's whisper echoed in her mind, "Do not speak, or we all die." She realized that the weapon, or whatever it was, might respond to sound or to commands spoken aloud. Her voice, her father's voice, anyone's voice, could trigger it. Era took a deep breath. She needed to warn her father without speaking. Using gestures, she subtly shifted her hand toward the tile indicating concern while keeping her expression neutral. The chief, too focused on the ceremony, did not notice. But Ira's careful glance toward the guards suggested they move slightly, giving her the chance to examine the staff up close. A thin, almost invisible wire ran from the staff's tip down into the floor. The stranger's presence suddenly made sense. He was not an intruder.
It was a messenger.
Era understood. He had risked everything to reach them, and now it was up to her to prevent disaster. The crowd began to clap as the chief finished his speech. Era forced herself to join in, her hands shaking slightly. She kept her eyes on the stranger, who met her gaze once more, then nodded ever so slightly. That tiny nod was all the confirmation she needed. She had to act. But how? She could not speak. She could not alert anyone, and yet she could not simply ignore the threat. The stranger was escorted out of the hall, his mount waiting, engines quietly hissing. Era followed discreetly, careful not to draw attention. Every step felt like walking on the edge of a blade. As the hall doors closed behind him, a faint hum filled the room. Era froze. It was soft, almost imperceptible, but she knew immediately the mechanism was active. Her mind raced. The festival outside could be used as a distraction, but there was no time, and she had no way of communicating the danger without speaking. Ira clenched her fists. She would have to think fast. She would have to act smart, and she would have to trust the stranger, who had risked everything to deliver this warning. The suns touched the horizon. Shadows swallowed the walls of the hall, and above, the faint blinking symbol pulsed once more, silent and deadly, like a heartbeat counting down to something no one else could see. Era knew the moment of decision was coming, and when it did, the fate of the entire settlement might rest on a single whisper. The stranger disappeared into the shadows outside the hall, his mechanical mount melting into the crowd of festival-goers. Ira stayed behind, her hands still folded politely, her face calm. Inside, the council hall seemed quiet now, but her heart beat like a drum. Every second was precious. She could still feel the stranger's warning like a cold hand on her shoulder. Do not say a word, or we all die. She had only one thought: the ceremonial staff. That glowing carved stick in her father's hands was more than a symbol. It was the key to a deadly mechanism. Somehow, beneath the floor, a device had been hidden, powered by a signal from some unseen source. If anyone triggered it accidentally, the hall and everyone inside would vanish in moments. Era needed help, but whom could she trust? The chief was too focused on his ceremonial duties. The guards were alert but clueless. And the settlers in the hall? They were laughing, clapping, unaware of the danger. Her eyes flicked toward the nearest guard, Marshal Tyrell, a man with a reputation for being both smart and careful. She gave him a subtle nod and pointed discreetly toward the staff and the floor tile beneath it. Tyrell raised an eyebrow but didn't speak. He followed her gaze, understanding immediately. There was danger, silent, invisible, deadly. Ira realized the first step was to distract the chief without alarming anyone. She remembered the old clan rituals, the small traditions embedded in every ceremony. With careful timing, she stepped forward and bowed slightly, pretending to adjust the staff. "Father," she said softly, "may I?" Her words were careful, meaningless to the untrained ear, but enough to guide her father's hand subtly to shift the staff's position off the tile. Chief Corlin looked down at her with a frown, but made no comment. The subtle adjustment shifted the pressure, and the faint hum beneath the floor changed. Era felt it, a vibration, almost imperceptible, but enough to tell her the mechanism was responding to pressure and position. She had bought a few seconds. Seconds could save lives if she used them wisely. Outside, the festival continued, oblivious to the danger hidden beneath the council hall. Merchants waved glow sticks, children ran laughing between legs, and the twin suns began to set, painting the dusty town in oranges and purples. The shadows grew long, masking Era's next moves. She needed to act quickly. She moved closer to the staff again, pretending to admire its carvings. Her fingers brushed the tip, careful not to trigger anything. Her eyes scanned the ceiling panels. She remembered the blinking symbol, the small, precise signal of the Orbital Strike Syndicate. That symbol meant only one thing. A strike could be called remotely, with deadly accuracy. Era's mind raced. If the mechanism was connected to the staff, then speaking, moving the staff too quickly, or activating any sequence might trigger the strike. She had to disable it, but she had no tools. No weapons. Only her knowledge, quick thinking, and the stranger's warning. Then she remembered the old maintenance tunnels beneath the council hall. They were narrow, dark, and often forgotten. Only a few knew their entrances. Era had explored them as a child, sneaking past her father to play with the old machinery and pipes. If she could reach the control core, she might find a way to disable the device, or at least slow it down. Era signaled to Marshal Tyrell. With a small nod, he followed her, pretending to inspect the hall. They slipped through a side door that led to a maintenance passage. The air was cool, dusty, and smelled faintly of metal and oil. Her footsteps echoed softly on the stone floor. "This way," Ira whispered. Her voice was low, careful, measured. Every sound mattered. They passed a series of panels, each with old wires and lights. At the far end, a small door led down into a spiral tunnel. She pushed it open carefully. The tunnel walls were lined with pipes, some pulsing with faint energy. The floor was uneven, and a small trickle of water ran along one side. Era led the way, careful not to trip or make unnecessary noise. Terrell followed closely, keeping his senses alert for any unexpected movement or alarm. Finally, they reached a small chamber. The control core was simple but strange, a compact device with glowing circuits and a faint humming energy. Wires ran from the core up into the floor above toward the staff. Ira knelt to examine it. She could see that the device was not only activated by pressure, but also keyed to specific signals, perhaps voice commands or even vibrations in the floor. "It's too sensitive," she whispered. "One wrong move and the whole hall is gone." Tyrell nodded. "We need to slow it down until the stranger comes back. He knows more than we do." Era studied the device. There was a series of levers and circuits carefully arranged. She recognized a pattern from her childhood lessons in mechanics and problem-solving. Carefully, she began to adjust the levers, testing each one with a tiny touch, listening to the hum of the device. Each adjustment slowed the pulse slightly, buying more time. Minutes passed like hours. She could hear faint footsteps above, the muffled sounds of the ceremony continuing. Every second counted. Then suddenly, a soft hiss echoed in the chamber. The stranger appeared in the shadows, his duster flowing like smoke around him. His eyes met Era's, and a small, relieved smile appeared on his lips. "You made it," he said quietly, though not entirely in words. His voice was calm, but urgency lingered beneath it. Era nodded, pointing toward the device. The stranger moved closer, examining it with practiced eyes. "They made it clever," he said, "but it's too small to hold for long. We need to finish this quickly." The stranger adjusted the wires and circuits, his fingers moving with precision. "The sequence can't be stopped," he explained softly. "Only redirected. The strike will still happen, but not where it's planned." Ira understood immediately. They needed to redirect the strike to a safe location. Somewhere uninhabited, somewhere the council hall above would be safe. Together, they worked quietly, methodically, coordinating their movements without speaking. The stranger used gestures, small signs, and nods. Era responded in kind, guiding him to wires, adjusting levers, and observing the humming core. Above, the chief continued the ceremony, unaware that a single wrong step could end everything. Era kept her eyes on the staff, ensuring that it remained off the pressure-sensitive tile. Her hands were steady now, but her heart raced. Every second felt like a minute. Finally, the stranger stepped back. "It's ready," he said. "We redirect the strike now." Era nodded. They both knew there was no turning back. The stranger touched a small panel on the device, and a faint pulse ran through the wires. The humming changed, then slowed. She could feel the tension in the air lift slightly, though danger still lingered like a shadow. The stranger turned to leave. "You did well," he said, his voice quiet but full of respect. "You could have panicked. You stayed calm." Ira's chest heaved slightly. Relief mixed with fear. "Thank you," she whispered. She knew they weren't entirely safe yet, but the immediate threat was under control. As the stranger slipped back into the shadows, Era and Tyrell returned to the council hall. The ceremony was ending, the crowd clapping politely, still unaware of the near disaster. Chief Corlin raised his staff for the final blessing, and the hum beneath the floor had faded. Era felt a small smile tug at her lips. For now, they had won the first battle. But she knew this was only the beginning. Somewhere above, the blinking signal had not vanished. Somewhere, someone was watching. And somewhere, the next challenge was already taking shape. As the twin suns disappeared completely behind the horizon, casting the settlement in twilight, Ira realized that silence had saved lives today. Silence and quick thinking. The stranger's warning had been clear. Do not speak, or we all die. She had listened, and it had been enough for now. The night had fallen over Duskgate Outpost, and the festival lights flickered across the dusty streets like distant stars. The twin suns were gone, leaving only the dim glow of hanging lanterns and neon signs from merchant stalls. The town seemed calm, but Ira knew better. The danger had not disappeared. It only lurked, quiet and patient, waiting for the first mistake. Ira walked with Marshal Tyrell toward the hidden maintenance tunnel. The hall above had returned to its ceremonial duties, with the chief finishing his speech. No one suspected the near disaster beneath their feet. Era's mind raced as she tried to plan the next step. The blinking signal in the ceiling panels still haunted her thoughts. Whoever controlled it was not finished. Outside the hall, a soft metallic hiss drew Era's attention. She froze, scanning the shadows. The stranger appeared, emerging from the darkness like a whisper carried on the wind. His hat cast a shadow over his face, but his sharp eyes met hers. "You've slowed it," he said quietly. "But it won't hold forever. The device is keyed to multiple triggers. Movement, pressure, sound. Anything could set it off. We have to finish this now." Era nodded. She followed him into the tunnel, keeping her steps soft and measured. Tyrell followed, silent and alert. The tunnel smelled faintly of oil and stone, a reminder that it had not been used for years. Dust hung in the air, settling slowly over the pipes and walls. The stranger led them to a larger chamber, where the control core pulsed faintly in blue light. Its energy hum vibrated through the walls. The wires snaked toward the surface, connecting to the staff in the hall above. Era examined the core carefully. The device was compact but intricate, built to respond to nearly everything around it. One wrong move could trigger disaster. "We need to redirect the strike," the stranger said. "Not stop it, only redirect it to a safe zone." "That means precision and speed. Are you ready?" Era swallowed, her heart pounding. "I'm ready," she said. Tyrell glanced at her. "We're all counting on you," he said softly. His eyes held trust, not fear. Ira drew strength from that. The stranger began manipulating the wires and circuits. His hands moved with incredible speed, yet with care. Era followed his gestures, adjusting levers and pressing panels as he indicated. Each movement changed the pulse of the core. The faint hum slowed slightly, but the tension in the air remained thick. Above, the festival continued, the laughter and music masking the quiet danger below. Ira thought of the people in the hall, the chief, the settlers, and the Red Mesa clans. Every second mattered. Every small gesture, every careful move could save them all. Suddenly the hum of the core shifted. A new pulse ran through the wires, faster, sharper, almost like a heartbeat. Era froze. The device was responding to something new. The stranger's eyes narrowed. "They're trying to override it," he said. "Someone is controlling the strike remotely. They've noticed interference. We don't have much time." Ira's mind worked quickly. "Can we block the signal?" she asked. The stranger shook his head. "No. But we can redirect it, point it somewhere harmless. The sequence is too complex to stop, but we can trick it." Tyrell watched quietly as Ira leaned closer to the control core. Her fingers danced over the panels, guided by instinct and knowledge she had gained from years of watching machines and patterns. The stranger gave her subtle signs, nodding here, pointing there, moving in silence. Minutes passed like hours. The hum grew louder, the pulse stronger, vibrating through the tunnel and into the stone walls. Era's hands moved quickly, carefully adjusting wires, tapping small panels and reading the faint lights on the core. She could feel the tension, almost alive, pressing against her chest. "Almost there," the stranger whispered. One more adjustment. Era held her breath. One wrong movement. One wrong touch, one sound could send a strike from the sky and destroy everything. She remembered the stranger's warning. Do not speak, or we all die. Her lips pressed together. No words. Only action. She moved the final lever, and the core's pulse slowed. The hum changed, becoming steadier, less frantic. The wires glowed softly, routing the energy toward a safe location. Above, the blinking signal disappeared, hidden once more. Era exhaled quietly. The immediate danger had passed. For now. The stranger turned to her, a faint smile beneath the shadow of his hat. You did it, he said softly. You redirected the strike. The council hall is safe. Ira's knees felt weak, but she stood tall. Relief mixed with exhaustion, but there was no time to celebrate. She knew the real threat had not yet been revealed. Someone had tried to trigger the strike. Someone still controlled the signal remotely. Tyrell broke the silence. We need to alert the chief. Carefully, without alarming anyone, Ira nodded. They returned to the maintenance passage leading to the hall. The stranger stopped her before they exited. Listen carefully, he said. No one can know how close you came to danger. If the wrong person learns about this, they could try again. You must be discreet. Ira understood. She would need to act carefully, warning her father without words. Her mind raced, searching for a method. As they emerged from the tunnel, the ceremony was ending. The chief raised his staff for the final blessing, his voice calm and steady. Ira positioned herself near him, using subtle gestures to guide him away from the sensitive tile. She adjusted her hands, moved slightly, and nudged the staff ever so gently. The chief did not notice, but the staff shifted enough to avoid triggering the mechanism. The crowd clapped politely, and the festival outside continued. Era could feel the weight of their success, but she knew the danger was not gone. Somewhere, the person who had tried to trigger the strike would act again. They needed to find out who before it was too late. The stranger faded into the shadows once more, leaving Ira and Tyrell to navigate the delicate task of keeping the chief safe. Era stayed calm, moving silently, thinking quickly. She knew the next step would require more than courage. It would require cleverness, observation, and trust in those around her. Her mind went back to the blinking symbol. Whoever had sent it had power and reach. They were watching. And they would not stop until they got what they wanted. Ira realized she had a choice, wait and hope, or act and protect everyone. She chose action. The twin suns had set completely, leaving only the stars above. Era felt a strange mixture of fear and excitement. The settlement was safe for now, but she knew the night was only beginning. The next challenge would be harder, faster, and more dangerous. But she was ready. For the first time, she understood something important. The fastest draw in a gunfight was not the key to survival. Sometimes it was the quiet mind, the careful hand, and the courage to act when no one else could. And she had all three. The night air of Duskgate Outpost was cool and still, the kind of silence that carries secrets. The festival lanterns swayed softly in the breeze, casting long shadows across the dusty streets. Era stood near the council hall, her eyes on the ceremonial staff in her father's hands. Every muscle in her body felt tense, alert. She knew the strike had been redirected, but she also knew the danger was not over. Someone had tried to trigger the orbital weapon, and whoever it was had eyes and ears everywhere. Marshal Tyrell hovered near the entrance to the maintenance tunnel, keeping watch. His face was calm, but Ira could see the worry in his eyes. "Do you think it's over?" he asked softly. Era shook her head. "Not yet. Whoever tried this once could try again, and next time, they might succeed." Above them, the chief was unaware of the danger that had passed. He smiled at the crowd, his staff raised high, blessing the settlement in the customary manner. Era studied his movements, noting the careful balance of pressure and position that had kept the staff safe. Every step, every gesture mattered. Suddenly a soft pulse ran through the air, like a vibration in the wind. Era... Her heart skipped a beat. The device was responding again. Someone was still sending signals. The stranger appeared from the shadows, emerging silently as though he had been part of the night itself. His duster flared slightly in the soft light, and his eyes met Era's. No words were spoken, yet she understood instantly. This was the final test. The strike could still happen, and this time, they had to end it for good. He gestured toward the maintenance tunnel. Era nodded. Together with Tyrell, they moved quietly through the passage, careful not to alert the crowd or the chief. The stranger led them to the control core, the hum of the wires now faint but persistent. The pulse of energy beneath the floor told them that someone above, or perhaps far away in space, was still trying to override their redirection. "We don't have much time," the stranger whispered. "The sequence will complete soon if they succeed. You must speak, not to anyone else, only to me. I can coordinate the final redirection, but you must guide me." Ira hesitated. For hours she had not spoken, not even a word. Her silence had saved lives. But now the situation demanded something different. Careful communication, concise and clear. She leaned close to the stranger. "Point it to the uninhabited valley," she whispered. "Coordinates are in the east sector. Rocks, sand, nothing else." The stranger nodded, his fingers flying over the controls with incredible precision. He adjusted wires, tapped panels, and monitored the pulsing energy. Era's heart pounded as she watched the hum shift, slower, steadier, until the signals above the hall blinked out entirely. "Done," he said quietly. "The strike is redirected, the council hall is safe." Ira exhaled slowly. Relief washed over her, but she knew the night wasn't finished. Someone had tried to manipulate the strike remotely. The syndicate, or whoever had sent the signal, would not have given up so easily. They had to uncover the source. Above them, the council hall erupted in applause. Chief Corlin smiled, oblivious to the invisible danger that had passed. Era adjusted her robes and returned to his side, pretending to admire the ceremonial staff. She smiled faintly at him. No one else could know how close they had come to disaster. "Everything is fine," she whispered silently to Terrell with a small gesture. He understood. The two of them had kept the secret, just as the stranger had warned. A faint sound above, the whisper of a step on metal, drew Era's attention. She turned slightly and saw the blinking symbol on the ceiling panels again, now faint and dim. It pulsed once, then disappeared. Someone had tried one last time, but it was too late. The signal could no longer reach the device. Era realized that the danger was finally over. The strike had been redirected safely to the barren valley. No lives were lost. The orbital strike syndicate's plan had been stopped. The stranger emerged from the shadows for the last time. "You did well," he said. "You stayed calm, clever, and brave. Few could have done what you did tonight." Iris smiled faintly. "I had help," she said, glancing at Terrell. The stranger shook his head. "You guided the final move. That was your choice. The rest of us simply followed." Outside the council hall, the stars shone bright over the desert. The twin suns had long disappeared, and the night was deep and peaceful. The festival continued, unaware of the near catastrophe that had unfolded beneath their feet. Ira walked to the edge of the platform, looking out over the settlement. The lights of Duskgate Outpost twinkled like distant stars themselves. Somewhere in the uninhabited valley, the redirected strike had landed safely, leaving the barren landscape untouched except for a harmless pulse of energy. She felt a hand on her shoulder. It was the stranger, his presence calm and quiet. "It's finished," he said softly. "For now, peace is yours. But remember, vigilance never ends." Era nodded. She understood that the future would always hold threats. The Syndicate or another enemy could try again. But tonight she had made the right choices. She had saved her people, her father, and the settlers. She had stayed silent when it mattered, acted when it mattered, and thought when it mattered. Chief Corlin stepped down from the platform, smiling at his daughter. "You have grown wise, Ira," he said. "Brave and clever. Our people are lucky to have you." Era bowed slightly, hiding the relief and exhaustion she felt. "Thank you, Father," she said softly. Her eyes flicked to the shadows, searching for the stranger, but he was already gone. Like a whisper in the wind, he had disappeared into the night, leaving only the lesson he had imparted. Courage, calm, and quick thinking can save lives without a single gunshot fired. Marshal Tyrell joined her side, giving a quiet nod of approval. "You did well," he said. "We all owe our lives to your quick thinking." Ira smiled faintly. She looked once more at the ceremonial staff. It was just a staff now, ordinary and harmless. But she knew the truth. Even ordinary objects could hold extraordinary danger, if one was not careful. The festival continued around them, children laughing, merchants calling out prices, settlers enjoying the calm of the night. The twin suns would rise again, bringing light and warmth to Duskgate Outpost. But Ira understood that life on the frontier was never truly safe. Challenges, threats, and mysteries would always return. Yet tonight she had faced one such threat and triumphed, not with speed or strength, but with intelligence, bravery, and patience. She had learned that silence, clever action, and trust could be more powerful than any weapon. A faint breeze carried the smell of desert spice and metal. Somewhere in the valley, the redirected strike had landed harmlessly. The world was safe, for now. Era stood tall on the platform, watching the stars. She did not know what tomorrow would bring, but she knew this: she was ready. And somewhere, far above the settlement, the message was clear. On Kestrel 9, the deadliest draw was not a gun. It was wisdom, calm, and courage, the power to act quietly when the world demanded silence. The stranger was gone, the threat neutralized, and the night settled over Duskgate Outpost. Era knew that peace had a cost, but it was a cost she was willing to bear. She had learned the truth of the frontier. The fastest draw may save some lives, but the cleverest mind and the calmest heart could save them all. And with that thought, she turned back to the hall, ready to face whatever tomorrow would bring.